The Colorado Eagles Hockey Club keeps finding new ways to embarrass itself in the national news. First, the Avs minor league team kept the Kelly Cup trophy after a fight with their old league, and now it comes out that an Eagles manager dressed up in blackface as a black player on the team, a player who was then asked to pose for a photo right next to the manager imitating him in blackface. The manager's fortunate he didn't lose his front teeth. This is the photo from a Halloween party in 2011. The player, Akeem Alou, has led a recent reckoning over the issue of racism in hockey. There's an NHL coach fired for calling him a racial slur. The man in this photo is Eagles equipment manager Tony Daisner. Alou's representative said that Alou felt like he had no choice but to pose for this photo at the party. Shortly after, Alou asked to be traded away from the Eagles. The Avalanche, the parent organization here, have placed the manager on leave right now. The Colorado Eagles are offering what appears to be an attempt at an apology. It spends twice as much time talking about how great the organization is than it actually spends apologizing. Alou's rep said, "You can hardly call it an apology." We'll let you take a look. Quote, "As an organization, the discovery of this event deeply saddens us. Although we had no prior knowledge, that doesn't excuse or diminish the fact that this has hurt a fellow human being. Rest assured, our organization holds no ego too big or stature so proud that we are above apologies for any wrongdoings. As a family-oriented organization, we wholeheartedly seek your forgiveness and sincerely apologize. Truly very sorry, and also assure you that this behavior is not and will never be acceptable in our organization." There's a lot of words there, I understand. So let's go to our telestrator of sorts to break down just what a terrible blackface apology this is from the Colorado Eagles. There are 13 words in there that are actually spent apologizing. There are 32 words spent talking about how great the Colorado Eagles organization is and defending themselves. Probably just could have stuck to the apology part of the apology. So somebody builds a $160 million house. Play this out with me, all right? So somebody builds a $160 million house. They use it for a few years, then decide, I'm going to move out, just leave it empty. Well, now they want to move back in, but that's going to cost even more money. I also should have mentioned, you paid for this house. Taxpayers paid for it. It's your house. It's actually a prison in Colorado. You paid for it. It now sits empty, and it'll cost you if the state uses it again. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
We know this is more money. This is not lost on us.
Going to the Joint Budget Committee as the director of a State Department is kind of like going to your parents to borrow some money.
Tell us why it's worth $11 million and why those operational problems can't be fixed.
The Department of Corrections wants money to reopen this state prison, Colorado State Penitentiary 2. It cost $160 million to build, but shut down after a few years because it was used for solitary confinement, which the state has moved away from.
The increase in our budget would be about $7 million the first year and about $6 million ongoing from there.
The DOC wants to spend more money reopening it and ending a contract with a private-run prison in Colorado Springs.
Every month there have been identified deficiencies within the contract relating to security operations. And you'll see that they're repeated month after month after month.
There are 650 to 700 inmates in this Colorado Springs privately run facility. What the DOC wants to do is shut it down, move those prisoners into other state-run prisons, and then move some of those prisons' inmates into the newly reopened Colorado State Penitentiary 2.
My interest is, what are the outcomes? Are we going to get positive outcomes and successful citizens or not?
Lindsay Saunders Velez was an inmate in the state-run prison system. Lindsay recently settled a lawsuit over poor treatment while on the inside. Who better to ask why we should care if a prisoner is in a cheaper private prison or a more expensive state-run facility?
Because these are your taxpayers' dollars. This is what you're getting out of your taxpayers' money.
If this idea sounds familiar, the idea of closing private prison facilities, it's because it's happening in, the city of Denver with halfway houses. Kyle, it's not as simple as trying to figure out what the cheapest option is and having state lawmakers say, yeah, let's go with that. That's going to save us a lot of money. It just isn't that simple, apparently. Last time we were talking about this in terms of the prison system, we were talking about the idea that Colorado just wants fewer people in prison these days. Yeah, this is part of a group event. We've covered it over this off session of the Prison Population Committee, trying to lessen the number of people in prison. And to do so, if you limit the number of places that prisoners can go, thus you have to change the sentencing structure so that you're sentencing fewer people to prison. So it's twofold.
Doesn't just happen by wishing it so. All right. Thank you, Marshall. From the team that brought you the ethics investigation against former Governor John Hickenlooper comes a new ethics complaint against another prominent Democrat, former state rep turned environmental activist Joe Salazar. The complaint, unveiled today by the Public Trust Institute, says that Salazar was paid to lobby for his employer, Colorado Rising, an environmental activist group, just weeks after he got out of office. That is a no-no. They pointed to this YouTube video from March where Salazar says to call your senators and get them to pass a bill, which it says it is also direct lobbying. Salazar is accused in this ethics complaint of lobbying for that bill as well as an immigration bill. Colorado law prohibits former legislators from lobbying for 2 years after they leave office. We called Salazar and he told us he could not comment because he hadn't seen the complaint.
Our next question comes from a viewer on Twitter, wondering whether Estes Park is about to loosen up on the wacky tobacco. Curious whatever happened with Estes Park's special election on allowing marijuana businesses.
This is an easy one. Last night, voters overwhelmingly rejected the idea of allowing cannabis shops in Estes Park. 68% voted no. So no edible shop next to that taffy shop. We've talked a lot about barriers to affordable housing in Denver. One that we had not considered is brain injuries. The Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado and Brothers Redevelopment are working to build 72 new apartments for people who are homeless and have brain injuries. They plan to buy an empty lot on East Colfax, out past Quebec, and put together what they say will be a permanent affordable housing project. The Brain Injury Alliance will help people move off the streets and also offer services like behavioral health counseling, substance abuse help, or case management.
About 40% of the individuals who are currently on the streets in Denver right now will screen positive for having a brain injury. So it's a significant number. People with a brain injury find it hard in general to get services, in part because of the nature of the injury. Concentration, memory, mood issues can all impact someone's ability to work the system and actually get the services they need, and that includes housing.
Certainly makes sense when he explains it like that. So Denver City Council Committee passed this $19 million project last night. Now goes to the full council for approval. If they okay it, construction would begin next winter. When History Colorado got a big donation this year, their first call about it was to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. History Colorado wasn't sure the donation was safe. Here's Anusha Roy.
The call for help came on April 22nd, 2019.
They placed those items in evidence bags, and then those materials were sent to our lab for destruction.
The DEA meant business. They were going to get rid of all the dangerous pills.
It's just exciting.
But wait.
I mean, this is a piece of history.
This isn't some serious drug bust.
We don't get too many of those calls.
This is about 2 bottles of pills around 100 years old.
And I read the label and I thought, opium. I definitely have to call somebody.
It was the first time Amy Niles was overseeing a big donation to History Colorado. She was working to document Dr. Richard Speck's medical work in southern Colorado. He was born in 1886. He worked for the New Mexico Lumber Company, and in 1924, the company established the town of McPhee, about 14 miles outside of Dolores. His family donated his medical equipment this year, including bottles with some pills left in it.
That it says powdered opium, but it also says mercury with chalk.
The first call Niles made was to the DEA to make sure the museum could legally keep the donation and wouldn't put anyone at risk.
So we tried to help by removing the controlled substances, but also preserving these containers since they are a little piece of history.
Turns out this is an ongoing partnership because History Colorado is, well, dealing with historical objects from an era when rules were different.
Furs and taxidermy and textiles back in the day with arsenic and other materials because it's a preservation agent and it does preserve it, but it's very dangerous to handle it.
The DEA or a hazardous waste company can help get rid of those dangerous materials so History Colorado can do what it's set out to do.
Medical practices have definitely changed, and that's what we want to document.
Okay, so those bottles are officially cleared for use and perfectly safe, and the DEA says they have helped out in this capacity with History Colorado twice in the last couple of years.
I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody, but if the DEA walks into any kind of workplace, I imagine people are like, well, what are they here to see?
Yeah,
what are they going to
checking
check
out?
out? And when they walk into the museum, I mean, are they just looking at the one thing?
Yeah, so what they do basically is when they're bringing back exhibits, particularly ones about medication, sometimes History Colorado says, yeah, we check everything, make sure nothing gnarly is out in the public, and make sure that everything is basically safe for people to enjoy.
All right, we'll file that under
Protocol.
stuff we never knew. All right, thank you, Nusha. Hey, it's been a while since we played What Do You Say? So tonight we're hunting for the proper place name pronunciation of a river that runs through northern Colorado. A name is French. You've probably recognized it. But in true Colorado fashion over the years, locals put their own spin on it. So next viewers, Barb and Jim asked us to settle the debate. We reached out to the Fort Collins Museum of Discovery to ask, what do you say?
Well, one around here calls it the Cache-la-Poudre River. The legend is that a group of French trappers and traders were out here with a fur trading company, and they needed to lighten their load. They actually dug a hole near the banks of the river and cached their supplies in there, and then reburied it, and that way they cached their powder, they hid their powder, and that way they could come back and get it.
Another example of a non-English word that got twisted by our tongues and is now firmly pronounced our way. All right, where to next? Email your ideas to next@9news.com or give us a shout with the hashtag HeyNext.
Not everyone can see their own talent.
There's a lot of people, even in my class, that are so talented. I didn't think that, those little birds would get so big.
Until that talent is seen through someone else's eyes.
That's how good art happens sometimes. You don't even know you're making it until you step back and look at it.
And students convinced that their talent lies on the field are asked to consider something slightly different.
There's a million possibilities for you getting a shot to achieve your dreams.
Going pro in a new way. Next.
Here we go again. The mountains are bracing for another big-time winter storm. This one is going to stick with us Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and potentially even into Sunday. Right now we have a stream of moisture moving in across the west coast, rain and snow out there, and it eventually will make its way into our backyard. Tonight we just have a few light flurries going right there along the I-70 corridor, mostly cloudy skies here in eastern Colorado. We'll keep the clouds with us this evening as temperatures fall to the mid-20s. A cool night across the plains, 20s with teens up in the high country. So here we go. We're watching the storm system moving. Again, it's going to be a slow mover with us for several days, bringing heavy snowfall to the mountains. The rest of this evening, a few light flurries going up to the northern side of the state. Otherwise, clouds early tomorrow morning through the afternoon when that snow spreads just a bit further to the south of I-70, and then continues overnight into Friday. Friday morning really is when it looks to be the heaviest, and we could have some really strong winds out there. 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts coming, and then all the travel advisories in place showcasing 1 to 2 feet of snowfall by the time this storm is done. Tomorrow we stay dry here in Denver, 40s and 50s for the eastern side of the state. 7-day forecast getting even warmer on Friday, but windy. A couple of flurries Saturday night. A better chance, Kyle, for us here in the metro area seeing a bit of snow on Sunday, but right now it looks like less than an inch.
50 and windy on Friday is going to ruffle the fringe on my jorts.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so think back to high school. Were you one of those who knew exactly what you wanted to be? Or did it take some exploring? I mean, both paths work. Tonight, we meet a sophomore from Loveland High whose purpose and passion are getting her notice.
I like portraits a lot. I think portraits are actually one of my favorite things to do. Okay, so I am Samantha Griffin, a sophomore at Loveland High School.
Wrong side of the camera. My name is Brian Causer.
He's just Mr. Causer, and he teaches the photography 2 and photography 1. I think that's a good photo of you.
I'll take that.
I like that.
What's exciting about teaching is seeing good kids like Sam and other kids have doors get opened.
This is, the winning photo. I think it was really him that was like, you should enter this photo. I first entered in the Loveland Photographic Society, and there I only got 4th place.
I guess you just barely got in the door and then blew the door wide open.
So the contest was the youth showcase from the Photographic Society of America.
She won internationally.
Yeah, I didn't go into it thinking, yeah, this is going to win. this is my winning piece. It was just a fun picture.
And that's how good art happens sometimes. You don't even know you're making it until you step back and look at it.
One of these over here is actually my favorite sculpture. I think he's pretty cool.
I don't worry about it going to her head. I hope that it echoes for her that she has a skill that is valuable.
Change some of my settings. All of our cameras are named after famous filmmakers. I think that's fun. This is, I think, James Cameron. I don't have my own personal one yet, but I mean, I like this one. It's definitely made me really want to keep going with photography. You know, I'm still just me. I'm still just taking photos.
It's the first of its kind, not only in Colorado, but in the nation.
A high school encourages kids dreaming of going pro to expand their definition of big league.
I learned about sports sociology, which I didn't even know was a thing.
That's next.
"20 years ago, I was a high schooler writing a letter to my favorite college quarterback, asking him what I should tell my friends who all thought they were going to play pro sports like him. I was that nerdy. Anyway, Steve Sarkisian wrote back with actual advice on having a backup plan. Big points if you know who Steve Sarkisian is. Arvada high schoolers are fortunate that they don't need a nerdy classmate and a nice college quarterback to explore careers just outside of pro sports." Here's Byron Reed.
For most high school student athletes,
I wrestle and I run cross country.
the drive to succeed is natural.
When we're running and we feel like we're done, but we have to keep running, I love that feeling.
This is our outdoor complex.
But for Arvada High School freshman Seth Jolly, that feeling might be coming to an end.
And I really like sports, but I didn't know if I don't know if I could always go to college for sports.
Everything is turf that we compete on.
Jolly and his classmates are getting a tour of the sports complex at MSU Denver, part of his school's new Sports Business Academy curriculum.
It's the first effort in the public school system, certainly in Colorado.
A new academic pathway at Arvada High to give student athletes another option after graduation.
The sports industry is a $90 billion and growing industry. And so there's all kinds of jobs available.
How do we get people interested?
The pathway offers classes like sports marketing, sports management, and broadcast journalism to give students a behind-the-scenes look.
The business side of sports and educating yourself on how that industry works can be a great career for you, especially if you're passionate about sports and maybe you're not able to play sports anymore.
The program is in its first year, hoping to get a diverse pipeline of high schoolers interested in sports management careers, including young women.
It's a passion of mine to become into the journalism and broadcasting. So this tour is kind of pushing me to go farther.
It takes it off of the paper. It's makes it interactive, so where they can say, all right, so this is what it would look like, and this is facilities.
The school hopes these real-life experiences will give students like Jolly motivation.
Yeah, I learned about sports sociology, which I didn't even know was a thing.
To accomplish what's next after their final buzzer of high school.
I want to know what I'm going to do, have some kind of a plan.
For Next,
Kids, let's go.
I'm Byron Reed.
Your feedback tonight is on the art of apologizing. Next.